update on the 120. It's been about 2.5 months since I've done this. Life's been busy, hectic, crazy, whatever you want to call it. So finally it kind of settled down a little bit enough to give an update. I've had a lot of people comment on the videos, say, where's the update? Well, here it is. Kind of want to give you an update on the health of the tank, some things I've done with the cabinetry, some changes I made internally underneath in the sump area, and kind of some overall Apex Fusion guide on how I do it with my Apex system on the tank. So starting off, fish. How the fish doing? Fish are doing great. I got the little hippo tang or real tang there, or Dory as my boy would call it, and everyone else in the world would call her, I guess I should say, from a guy probably about a month and a half ago, and she had a black face until about a week after I got her from this guy, and now she's absolutely perfectly beautifully and healthy. So I think that it helps being in this tank because I take usually very good care of it. I have been a little bit lazy lately in terms of supplementing what I need to supplement in terms of Red Sea parts A and B, and also some phytoplankton. However, overall I feed them obviously every day and take care of them that way. But overall, fish are doing fantastic. I haven't had an in-jump out in a while because I have a screen on top, which I got from Bulk Reef Supply that I put together. It's one of those screen kits on there. Sits right on top of the rimless tank here. And but what inspired me to get that was because I had 3 fish jump out. I had the Diamond Watchman Goby jump out twice, died twice. And I had a yellow Goby jump out, and she died. And then I had my Rogue Rama here, one of those. He was eating up top where the food was, the brine shrimp. Jumped out, however, I was standing here watching him eat, and luckily be able to rescue him. Threw him back in the tank, and he was just sitting there swimming in circles, upside down, in the twirling motion. But luckily he recovered, and him and his little buddy are doing great, and recovered nicely. So fish are doing fantastic. I have a mandarin, blue mandarin in there as well, and he eats brine shrimp, he eats whatever the heck he eats on top of the rock in terms of the copepods. I bought, let's see, 1,500 copepods from, or 10,000, something crazy like that, from Algae Barn, as well as phytoplankton from them to feed the copepods. And so far, he's stayed alive for a long time, since I guess it's probably been at least 2 months now, since I've got the blue mandarin. So good on that. Usually they say wait 6 months to a year, but I like to take risk, and I did what I needed to do. I've had him before, so I kind of knew what they needed. And since I got him, he's done great, gotten fat, and yeah, he's still alive, which is awesome. In terms of coral health, I have had a few coral bleach out. I think it's due to some higher temperatures that this tank runs during the day. So living here in Oklahoma, we get obviously 95, 100-degree days commonly in the summertime. Therefore, that in combination with my metal halides, it gets really stinking hot. So during the day, it runs probably about 81 degrees, as I'll show you in my Apex Fusion interface here in a few minutes. But I've debated on getting a chiller for this thing. However, that is a huge extra expense and just a really pain in the rear. So you have to buy the chiller for about 700 bucks, plumb it in your tank, figure out a place for it in the sump area. I'd rather not have it sitting outside of the sump area, because that's what part of this rimless tank is about, is cleanliness and sleek lines. So, and also noise and energy expenses as well. So I said, you know what, screw it. My tank's doing fine, I guess fine-ish, except for a couple of bleached Acropora that I've had. I don't solely blame it on temperatures, because a lot of them are thriving and doing fantastic. So I don't know, it could be a combination of supplement lacking trace elements, temperature, who knows what. It's just part of reefing. You just lose corals sometimes. But overall, in terms of the coral health from Acroporas, they're doing fantastic. They've grown exponentially. I got a bunch of 15-pack of frags from Unique Corals out in California. Jason Fox Flames, Strawberry Shortcakes, Lemon Lime, something else. Chips Acropora. So I got a number of frags from them, and they've done really fantastic. So all the ones I've got from them actually have lived. And the ones I've gotten from other guys have died, so I don't know what that says, but Unique Corals has a good selection and pretty good prices. But I primarily wanted to go towards the Acropora part of this tank. As you can see, I do have quite a few brain corals, or lobophilias. guess euphyllias, I should say, with my wall hammers there. It's supposed to be pink, but it's really like a brownish, greenish. Wall hammer there is beautiful, flows nicely. Then I have, of course, the metallic green there, wall hammer sitting on the opposite side. Kind of wanted to frame this center part in. And then I have the Gallon Reef here, which is, I just did a water change, so it's still recovering from, I guess, the shock of having a water change. And then I have 4 brain corals, which is kind of ridiculous, but I enjoy them and they're pretty. I got this one for a trade right here, this red one. It has kind of a neon green center mouth area. This is supposed to be green, but it's looks like brown. I think it's due to my metal halides, because in the store with the hydros, I think it was actually an Ecotech, the radions looked ridiculous, so I don't know why it looks brown here. Then the hyper green there, I think is gigantic, it's about the size of a softball, honestly. And then I have a red-green one right there as well. I've had the clam since probably week 1 of this tank, and the clam's done fantastic. I've usually not had very good luck with clams, but he is awesome. But in terms of everything else, water is really nice, clarity is really nice. I do use carbon. I use a skimmer, obviously, filter socks, and then of course my cleanup crew, which I have quite a bit of turbo snails. I have a trochus snails, and then I have, of course, some crabs in there as well, doing their deal. So everybody's doing their job. Some other big changes is that I removed my Chaeto and my Kessil H380 light from my setup. It was getting just absolutely disgusting down in my sump area. So I said, you know what? My Chaeto's dying, so obviously it's not getting enough nutrients to remove out of the water column. So obviously my skimmer, cleanup crew, which I hired to do the job, are doing a fantastic job. So skimmer, socks, cleanup crew, doing their job. So therefore I took the Chaeto out, sold the light to someone here in the local area, and my sump area looks ridiculously clean, which I'll show you here in a second. And there's no excess algae growth, everything's going fantastic. So I'm not too worried about removing my Chaeto. I am running a two Marine Pure blocks, 4x8 inches, for extra filtration, because I don't have a ton of rock in there. It looks like a lot, but it's really not. Other than that, the tank's doing fantastic, and I would like to give you a little tour of the tank, fish, some of the sump area, kind of some changes to it. And also, last I want to mention is my cabinetry here. So this wasn't on last video we had. I did finish this up, I think, later part of July. Each panel here, so the front panel here, this comes off, the side comes off, and the other side comes off. So any kind of major maintenance I want to do, these all come off. So they're held on by magnets. They're the really strong earth dominating magnets. I forgot you get them on Amazon. And I just subset them in there, which I'll show you here in a second how I did it through a picture. And this is the way to do it, I believe. It's a steel stand plus a wood facade cabinetry. I will not ever do it a different way than this, because I think it's the most easiest, it's the most efficient, and it has the most options for you down the line. You're not screwing on anything. It's just all magnets and very, very clean. Lastly, I do want to kind of go over kind of some financial part of this thing. I've just been really toying with, like, okay, what's the future of this tank? Where do I feel like it's leading me or not leading me? So obviously it's a major investment for any kind of fish tank, right? So I kind of want to give you, on my next video, it's kind of a preview of it, the financial breakdown of this tank. So what I'm envisioning here is really kind of some dollar signs by each piece of coral, each fish, each piece of equipment, to give you an idea of, hey, this is what it's going to cost, this is how Barrett did it, this is what it's going to cost. If I want to do it this way, it costs me. Now, there's a lot of inherent costs, such as water changes, energy cost, food, coral dying, fish dying, that you don't think of up front. So I kind of want to give you an idea of maybe what that's going to cost you long term, and maybe some other financial ideas you can have down the road, except with it not being a fish tank. Either it could be in investments, any kind of funds, paying off some debt. So I kind of want to give you guys an options down the road, just something to think about when you get into this hobby, because it's very expensive, and there's a lot of other wise ways you can use your money. So that's kind of my job, is to educate, and that's kind of what I want to do for you. So other than that, let's get started in the tank, and I'll show you around on what's going on with this tank. All right, guys, here's a little tour of how the fishes are doing in the corals. You can see that they're gonna get fed, but it's just not possible tonight, guys, because you already got fed. So, clam's doing fantastic. red and green brain is doing awesome. Lobophilia is doing fantastic. He's just growing, growing, growing. Dory says hi. So right there should be the Jason Fox Fox Flame, and he's kind of browning out in the tips. I don't know what's going on, but he is. So I gotta be careful with that. Strawberry shortcake up there. Red Planet right there. Rainbow Millie right there. The orange Chaeto in the back. This guy is blowing up. Pink Millie there. Metal halide lighting is a lot different than any kind of LED, so that's kind of why I seem the colorations are seeming a little bit strange. So there's blue. Some more orange Chaeto. I had a ton of that. So some Chips Acropora looks browned out, but it's not in the picture. Trust me. I don't know why it shows it like that, but it does. There's the red and green brain. The brown brain I talked about. Goniapora, and the large green. He's gigantic. Of course, the wall hammer, and then the pink, supposedly. So here's my little tube anemone. He's just coming out. He'll come out here probably in the next hour or so. Lights will just go off here shortly. And there's, of course, the blue mandarin. He's doing fantastic. He just hangs out, man. He didn't care. All those guys are doing wonderful. There's the Jason Fox Brain Freeze. Got that from a friend of mine. Just gave him to me. I'm not going to spend $300 on a freaking frag. It's ridiculous. Just for a name. Just my opinion though, guys. So sorry if you're offended. That started off with two heads. Now it's 5. That was probably about 2 months ago. Another frag of orange Chaeto. So we're doing great here. I want to update my light. So as you can see, T5 ballast is out. This is that $300 light I bragged about saying it's awesome. Well, it's still okay. It's just missing 2 T5s. I switched out the bulbs to think that was maybe the problem. Nope. Brand new bulbs in there, still is out. So I think it's the ballast on this $300 T5 metal halide combo. So I'm too lazy to change that, and also don't want to spend money on, you know, $1,200 on some new lights. So it's doing fine for now, my friends. Moving down to the sump area. As you can see, that's where I had my Chaeto, and it was ridiculously dirty. I had algae everywhere, so I actually took this entire thing out, redid the sump area, cleaned it all out, and now it's skimming and looking pretty. So there's the UV sterilizer. As you can see, the CO2 scrubber is about halfway exhausted in terms of the media in there. I don't have my carbon running right now. I still need to. I just did a water change. Filter socks are doing fantastic down there. Here's my marine pure blocks for additional filtration. And then my Reef Octopus Vario 6 return pump. So there's my 2 energy bars, my doser, and my dose reservoir down there. And then everything else is my Tunes and Apex head unit. And then my Skims controller and Vortec quiet drives back in the back, and the Vario 6 controller there as well. So other than that, very, very pleased with how that's going. I do want to kind of show you where my ATO is, how I've done that. So there's that. My ATO is in here with Kalkwasser. So that's little tube going through the wall and to the back, and then in the tank down there in the sump. So that's kind of how that flows. So I feel bad for my guests in my guest room, but I don't like hearing it here in the living room. But there's the tank, guys. It's doing really, really good. I'm very happy with it. Just some few things I need to tweak. You keep an eye on the bleaching of a couple of corals. But other than that, I'm very, very pleased. So if there's any questions about the tank, would love to take questions about it. And then other than that, let's go to my Apex, and then I'll return with a closing comment. Thanks, guys. All right, guys. Here's the Apex Fusion interface for me. We'll start here on the left with the salt content, or parts per thousand, to 33.8. As you can see, over the past 24 hours, we've only swung from 33.3 to 33.8. I do this by maintaining my automatic top-off system, which is a Tunes osmolator 3155, and then my reservoir, which is a Trigger Systems 10-gallon Sapphire, I guess, model, which matches my blue sump that from trigger systems as well. So how I keep tabs of what this actually is in terms of conductivity or specific gravity, I'll go to my little handy dandy salinity conversion calculator, throw 33.6 in there, and then you can see my specific gravity is 1.025, which is right on the money. So going back to my temperature, I guess this is probably my biggest hang up of my entire system is my temperature. So good thing is that my 400 watt heater is not used a lot, but bad thing is that it gets up to like probably 81 degrees throughout the day. So right now it's about 4:15 or so, and we're sitting right around obviously 80 degrees. As you can see, the swings here are pretty standard. So yesterday I got to 79.7. Today is probably 80 degrees once this is all said and done. And at nighttime, you can see it just levels off right to 78.1 to 78.8 is kind of where my range is set for my heater. So this is obviously caused by it's summertime. My house gets a little warm during the day when I'm at work, and then also my metal halides lights are basically a gigantic heater on top of my tank. I debated a chiller, however, the cost with the chiller itself, which is $700, which is ridiculously silly. Then you have keeping my house cool, which running my AC all the time, which is not going to happen. And then having to plumb this thing in my tank, and then having the noise as well associated with it. And then where the heck do I put my chiller? As you can, from what you've seen in my tank, there's really nowhere to put it besides on the outside of my tank or in my guest bedroom, plumbed through the wall, which I'm not going to do. So I just decided not to do it. And it seems like I've had a couple SPS bleach. However, overall tank's doing pretty well, so I'm not real concerned about it. I think there is some coloration issues with the extra zoanthely on my coral. I'm not getting as best colors as I could, probably because of this temperature. So that's a kind of a trade-off I'm having of what to do. So we'll see in the wintertime of what I do. I might have some other plans for this tank as well, so I'll let you know on the next update. So for right now, that's kind of what I'm dealing with, the temperature. pH, this is using my CO2 scrubber. We're sitting at 8.13 during the day, and then down at night, 7.94. That's okay. I'm not too hung up about it. I'd rather it be obviously 8.2, 8.3 range, but this is with the CO2 reactor that I have plumbed in my tank into my skimmer. It does okay, so I guess I'm happy with it. I'm dosing 60 milliliters of calcium per day during the day, 12 to midnight, and then from midnight to 12 p.m., I guess, or noontime, I'm dosing alkalinity 65 milliliters per day. This is my dose reservoirs. Keeps real good tabs on my quantity and kind of where I'm doing with that and when I need to refill. So that's actually a very handy tool to have long term. So moved up to my UV. I have my UV off right now. I do that run every 12 hours. Metal halides are on, moonlights are off obviously, and T5s. I have 4 empty slots on my Energy Bar 832s. Moving down to return pump, of course it's always on. Heater is on whenever it needs to be. Return pH, so pH being power head for my return area. So this is so my calcium and alkalinity don't precipitate in my return pump area. So this mixes it up in my return pump area, which is kind of cool. I learned that from a fellow reefer. Skimmer, 24/7, auto top off 24/7. Skimmer power head, this allows detritus to be caught up by the skimmer more efficiently. So this basically power head blows in any kind of crap from the bottom of the skimmer compartment into the skimmer to be removed from the water column. Power heads, these are my Vortec MP40 quiet drives. As I've said before, I'm not running my Chaeto light. I sold that off. I didn't feel like that was working very well. My Chaeto was dying a lot, and that told me either A, I didn't have enough nutrients, or B, it was consuming way too many nutrients, and not my skimmer and filter socks and cleanup crew were not getting enough to eat. So I removed the Chaeto, and it looks 1,000 times cleaner in my sump, as you can see, and sold that light off to a fellow guy in another town in Oklahoma. So I have that off. I'll probably remove that here eventually. And then here's my MP40s left and right. I have it on Pulse, which is basically a wave making program, and then my MP40 right
is on anti-sync, so it's basically in the opposite, running opposite of my left, and so it creates a little wave inside the tank. It's not real pronounced, but it's enough to move the coil around and give the perfect water flow for the SPS. And then, so moving on to my power consumption here. This is probably the coolest thing I have with the Energy Bar 832s, is that I can actually look at real time what my power consumption is and actually what it's costing me. So what you do basically is essentially put in what your cost per kilowatt hour is, and then this is kind of local Oklahoma City wattage cost per kilowatt hour. Throw it in there, and then it figures kind of how many amps and watts you're running, and then figures it out per hour. So 10 cents an hour. I think that's an hour, or I don't think it's per day. I'm pretty sure it's per hour. So as you can kind of figure out, I'm running 10 cents there, 1 cent, 11, 16, 17, and then 25. So 25 cents an hour, that's $12 a day, I believe, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. That's a lot of money. And in fact, speaking of money, I'm going to do a kind of a finance on fish tanks here on my next episode. Kind of what pros and cons. I'm going to give you some options, kind of what I would do next time, what I'm thinking about doing instead of doing the fish tank stuff, of really kind of how you can better invest your money. I'm not a money expert, but I after doing this a couple times now, or 3 times, is my 3rd tank, I've had just a lot better feel for what's important, what's not, and you know, I'm gonna do a whole breakdown of what it cost me, monthly costs, and so it should give you a good insight on kind of what you should expect. I do have a lot of equipment that's more expensive, and so that's another reason why I could probably better invest my money. However, it shows how I chose to do it, and so I hopefully give you a general idea of what you can do better with your cash as a reefer or not be a reefer. And so moving on to my second 832, obviously my metal halides consume a crap ton of energy. They're 250 watts a piece, or I guess whatever they are, in this case 234. So that's a lot of money, and then that's a lot of energy, obviously. And so then my T5s, and then the rest are unused. So that kind of gives you an idea of what my whole Apex Fusion is about, how I use it, kind of some general ideas of what it costs, and hopefully this helps you out, kind of help you see what it might take to run the system. And it's not very hard to do. It's just it takes some configuration at first, but it's a very good tool for upkeep and maintenance of your tank. So anyway, hopefully this helps, and we'll get back to the tank here in a second. Thanks, guys.
All right, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm glad I was able to connect with you guys again. I know it's been a long time, so I apologize, but I do appreciate the questions, the comments, the criticisms. Even that doesn't bother me. It just helps me get better and think about things in a more dynamic way to get better at this hobby. I'm excited about the next video, honestly, to kind of break down the cost thing, because the thing that everybody wants to do is have something that's beautiful and you can show off to your friends and your family of like, hey, look at this, look what I've done. But also it has the associated costs with everything that we do, whether that be actually the cost of equipment, the cost of the fish, cost of coral, cost of water, cost of maintenance, cost of energy. So I want to educate you guys as much as I can. I know there's maybe some other videos on YouTube about the cost of a fish tank, but I kind of want to do it from a personal perspective and some details. Hope you guys will join me in that, on a very detailed analysis of what this will cost you long term. Since this is my 3rd tank, I've had a 90, I've had a 180, and now I've had a 120. So I do have some experience with it, and hopefully I can bring you guys some good insight to make you think about things from a financial perspective, long-term investment, so we can make the best use of our money long term. And I'm really looking forward to hearing some comments on what you guys think of how I'm doing. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or criticisms, let me know in the comments below. If you like the video, go ahead and subscribe so you can see the next video in terms of how we're going to talk about the costs of the tank. Hope you guys do well. Have a happy October, happy fall. We'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks.